Hey,
Hi guys, what's up?
what's happening?
I don't know about you guys, but I think that beat is like funky fresh. Like I'm not really sure if that's still a term, but that's
No.
the term I want to use. I feel like that beat is like funky fresh, and I want to hear the whole beat, and it makes me like want to like write out 16 bars and just start rapping because I can rap. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but back in my day, I used to rap. Feel like Pastor John's not ready to let people know that, but I used to be a rapper. You know, he used to be a rapper also back in his day, and so I feel like that's why he may not want people to know that I also used to be a rapper. And so anyway, that beat, that little intro beat, makes me want to just write out 16 bars. Happy Coffee Date
Happy Coffee Day.
Monday. Okay, just want to say real quick, today is not one of my favorites. You know why? We haven't even started yet, but I'm gonna tell you why this week's Coffee Date Monday is not one of my favorites. It is because I have not a clue what we're talking about. Not a clue. Therefore, today's coffee date is not one of my favorites. I have not a clue what we're talking about. When there's no plan, it's not my favorite.
Hi, Thailand. There's Sabrina.
I
Thailand is watching. I'm saying that because there's some still, she hasn't updated her phone. I think she has one of those phones from South America somewhere. They just, I don't know what's wrong.
don't be offensive to South American people, or you will be offensive.
This is going to be good. Yeah, that's what Thailand said. So, I'm going to give you the subject because Kai doesn't know because for some reason today she's got up on the wrong side of the bed. She had a tough workout with the garage ladies, and but you guys, you know what? She's strong, strong, strong. There, hook your chest out, hook your chest out. Yeah. So what we're talking about today is looking out for number one. Looking out for number one. Now, I'm trying to take a lesson from Atira about using idioms or using what is it? Acronym, whatever it's called. I'm not using an acronym, but we're looking at for the word idiom. I think that's the word. You guys know what I mean. But looking out for number one, and when in a relationship, looking out for number one isn't really meaning looking out for yourself. Number one is I have to look out for my number one, and my number one is her. She is my number one. And I think what we need to do is, what the Bible tells us to do is consider others higher than
So,
ourselves. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. I can see it all over, written all over your face. You don't have to say a word, but we're going to get through this today because last week we weren't here. This week, I had to get up early, work out, trying to get stuff together, and guess what we had to do? Go pick up my daughter from school. She wasn't feeling well. I had to do a monkey wrench in the whole program. But we're going to get through it. So, looking out for number one. What does that mean? What does that mean to you, honey, looking out for number one?
well, you're saying number one is your spouse.
Yes.
Number one, as in like first ministry.
Sure.
That's why you're saying number one.
Looking out for number one. Because most of the time people are like saying, I'm looking out for number one, which means I'm thinking about myself.
Right. That's what it means to me when I hear looking out for number one. That's the first thing I think.
Mm-hmm.
Looking out for self. So that's what it means to me. You're saying number one, as in first ministry type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we're supposed to come first ministry, one another. So what does that look like? What does that look like?
Okay. Looking out for number one means putting your your significant other's interests above yours. So the thing about a ring is every time I do people's vows, I look at the ring and we talk about how the ring is never ending. It's infinite. It's a circle. And what that represents is how there is no breaking in the relationship. It's constantly giving one to another. And in true relationships, you can't get to a point in the relationship and always say, well, what about me? What about me? Me, my needs. I'm getting taken. Am I taking care of? But the whole point of the relationship is not taking care of yourself, but taking care of the other person. So that I'm giving all of me into them and they're giving all of them into me. So one of the problems I think that most people have is there comes a time in this balance of relationship that sometimes that balance gets to teeter-totter. And because the teeter-totter happens, people start looking at themselves and they're like, well, look about me. I'm doing more work. I'm doing this, or you're not meeting my needs, or the kid, even the kids start thinking about the kids. But what about me? What about me? The whole point is this whole conversation about looking for number one is that looking out for number one is this. You have to look out for your spouse's good. And when your spouse begins to say something like, what about me? When she says that, as a man, my job is to make sure that she's getting what she needs. Not about going, what do I need? Okay, you need something, but what about me? Well, what about me? You know what I'm talking about. People always do that. We hear that in counseling sessions all the time. People, my needs aren't getting met. And people say stuff like that. And when you start hearing that, you have to sit down and discern what is the issue about people's needs getting met. Is it just a season that people's needs aren't getting met? Or is it a fact that somebody's not doing what they need to, which means giving all of themselves, giving all of yourselves to your significant other the same way that they're giving all of themselves to you. So that way there is no lack. That one to another, we are giving out and pouring out into each other so our cups are always full.
One of the first thoughts that I have is in the marriage vows when it says forsaking all others. One of the things I always find interesting is when I've seen married couples, and they do the whole sand thing. You guys ever see people when they have the sand, and he has some sand, and then she has some sand,
like black sand, like brown sand, so they go together.
Sure, yeah. So he has some sand, and then she has some sand, and then they're pouring their sand into one vessel, and forsaking all others, to me, looks like when they're pouring that sand in, there's a certain amount of sand that actually don't make it into the combined vessel. Like there's sand that falls out and it gets onto the ground or onto the table, and then it's kind of messy. And especially for somebody like me, OCD, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a mess. There's sand everywhere now. But one of the things that I really like the illustration that you bring out of that when the sand doesn't all make it in, he talks about those are the things that don't fit into this union. As the two are becoming one, there's some things that's going to have to drop off, like some friendships or some relationships that are outside of this relationship may not fit into this vessel as we become one. Some offenses, some things that was on you or that you dealt with previously, where it's like that's not going to fit into this vessel, and so it's okay that things get a little messy or don't always look the same or don't always look neat and pristine because as the two become one, there's some forsaking that we're going to have to do. I mean, can we even just talk about it? The Bible talks about when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. But listen, it also talks about that he has to leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. There's some leaving and some cleaving. So there is definitely some forsaking of others that has to happen in order for the union to really become one and be what it's supposed to be. And sometimes that forsaking or that leaving or that, making things look different than what it did before, sometimes people have a hard time with that because that's change. You know, like, you mean I can't always just go to my mom's house and eat dinner? Like, I've always done that. That's always been what it is. It's like, no, this is us becoming one. It's about us creating this family now, and what does that look like? What do these boundaries look like? And so looking out for number one is like, how do I create family? How do I create community with you? How do I create trust with you? How do I create an atmosphere of love with you, even if it looks different than what it looked like before we were married or before we were together? I feel like that's one of the hardest things that we found when young couples come together, because they want to keep things the same even though that they're married. And the thing is that things aren't the same. Things are not the same. You become a whole nother person. Like, do you realize that? You become a whole nother person. The Bible says that the two shall become one. That means there is some transformations that are happening here. There's some, what do you call it, metamorphosis, whatever. There is some changing that is happening. The two shall become one. So that means you played basketball every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at the gym club until 10 o'clock at night before, and you're trying to figure out why you can't keep doing that, because you have to look out for number one and figure out, what does this new family of us becoming one, what does that look like? Even if it means some things have to drop off, like the illustration with the sand. There's some sand, there's some habits, there's some relationships, there's some things you did before that's not going to make it into that combined vessel, especially if one another feels challenged by it, if it comes to compete with the community that you guys are building, the love, the atmosphere, the trust that you're building. If I don't know how you guys feel about your spouse having friends with opposite sex, but that's always been a thing. Like, that always comes up a lot. And so, like,
not with us, with other
definitely not with us. But there's been couples where it's like, homeboy's like, hey, she's been my friend. She's been like one of my best friends my whole life, and then his wife is having an issue with it. Well, when you have a mindset to look out for number one, you'll have to say, listen, this relationship or this thing that was happening before the marriage is coming in to compete with this new family, this new family structure that we are building together, this new community of trust and love and understanding. If it's coming to compete with that, then that's probably some of the sand that's not making it into the combined vessel. But we got to be willing to make those changes, if we're really serious about looking out for number one.
That's good.
That was a mouthful.
That's pretty good, because, I mean, even on that subject, number one, just talking off the top of our head, just specifically, a lot of times, because of the way certain dynamics are with families, especially you guys, my Latino families and Black families know, mama is always number one.
Mama's always number
Mama is numero uno. Yes, she is number one. And you will have some major issues, whether you're a man or a woman. If when you get married with somebody and try to not just marry your spouse, but also invite your mom into the marriage.
Right.
Because that is a no-go. It's why it says a man should leave his father and mother and cleave
to his wife.
But it's also the same thing. Ladies, I have to tell you that sometimes some of the issues that you have with your spouse or your significant other, your mom could be your best friend, but you need to realize too, she can also be your worst enemy. You just don't know it, because your mom's going to fight for you. And if you're offended, if you're offended,
and you're mad,
you tell mama. Mama knows how to take that. She knows how to take that anger and do something with it. Carry it and build it up.
Yep.
And she'll know how to just let that anger out. And you know what the funny part about it is? You as the woman, you ain't even angry anymore.
No, you're ready to
I
forgive
love
him.
him. I love him.
But
And mama's like,
not.
mm-mm,
Mama's like, no, I'm still mad. I'm mad that he hurt you, and no, you're ready to move on and forgive him. I'm not. So being careful about looking out for number one sometimes means like mama can't be your best friend in your marriage because you can't be telling mama everything that's going on inside your marriage. It's just not. It's not. I mean, and of course this goes for dads too. I'm just saying, like any kind of family members, any kind of relationships that may come to compete with the community of trust,
number
love,
one.
and number one. Yeah.
This is what number one is. And, you know, and I'll share a testimony. And you guys know we're just open that it was a fourth year of marriage, around a fourth year of marriage. And, you know, Kai and I's marriage was just crumbling apart. And there was some issues, just some trust things that were going on. And I was ready to just end this whole marriage and everything else. Kaya, I'm trying to this day, this was nothing but the wisdom of God. I'm trying to tell you. If you guys know our story, at the beginning of our story, my family and my wife weren't the best of friends at all. Not at all.
That's basically putting it nicely.
Putting it nicely. But when there was some trouble going on with our marriage, my wife's mother, who was in her corner,
my best friend,
so her best friend, who's been there, wasn't the one that my wife went to. She literally, the Lord, she heard from the Lord and said, you know what? I need to call John's mom.
I had to call somebody that loved him.
That loves me.
And would fight for him just as much as I would.
Right.
Because my mom, I mean, like, she loved him, but she loved her daughter. She loves me. And so the moment mom would know that I'm hurt or anything happened, she's ready to.
She got a blade out.
She's ready to come to blows.
She's going to cut your throat.
That's just how it is. And I knew that my mom would only fight for John so much when it came to me. But John's mom, who had a heart for him way before I did, I thought, you know what? I'm going to call John's mom. And who, was not my best friend at the time. You know, he wasn't the biggest Kaya fan. But I knew that she was a John fan. And so in my hurt, in my pain, I reached out to her and I basically was telling her, look, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. You know, she'd been married for many, many, many years, you know. So at that time, I needed some wisdom on what it looks like to fight through a time that's shaky and I'm uncertain if I want to even stay in this marriage. So, but before I made that decision on whether I'm going to stay in this marriage or not, I knew not to let my mom in on this whole situation. She'd be like, pack your bags, let's go. Where we going? What you doing? What you doing?
And I tell you what, you know, the other thing is my wife protected me from mama daddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she
because she would always hold on to that offense.
Yeah, she would.
And I'm saying this because you look at looking out for number one. She was looking out for number one, us. The relationship was number one. The ministry was us. She looked out not only for that, but she also looked out for her mother.
Yeah, because it would have changed my mom's heart toward him.
Yeah.
Honestly, like forever. Like I feel like she would have always saw him through that lens, because her number one priority was me. Like she loved me, you know, and she would be willing to fight for me way more than I would fight for myself. And so she would feel like it was her duty to hold on to that for me. And I didn't want her love or her adoration for her son-in-law to be skewed in that way, especially if I was going to decide to stay in the marriage, which I eventually did. And so, and I remember, and I remember meeting with his mom, and she gave wisdom, dude. She gave wisdom. She gave me the support I needed, and it was really, I mean, it was a holy moment because I feel like it was a ram in the thicket. It was a ram in the thicket. Like it was out of nowhere. Here you are. This will be able to sustain you and help you for right now. And so, you guys, just looking out for number one, the whole thing is like, just when when you've been brought up in a way that most of us have been brought up, where it's like family's number one, like family's number one. What is it? Blood is thicker than water, or something like that.
Blood is thicker than mud.
But yeah. So it's like some people have that culture in their family, like, dude, family's first, family's first. Like, doesn't matter, family's first. You know, family is first, but you have to realize that this is your first ministry. This is your first family. And we're even talking about kids. Kids come after this. People sometimes don't want to hear that because it's like they have kids, and then all of a sudden these kids get put on a pedestal, and now kids are number one, and then the marriage takes back seat to kids. Now, raising great kids, that's great, that's commendable, that's what we're supposed to do. But children are something that's built upon the foundation of marriage first, and then here comes kids, and then here comes ministry, and then here comes businesses, but everything's built on the foundation of the marriage. Like, let us not go there about Jesus being married to the church. I'm just saying, I'll preach this thing in a second. But our marriage with Christ is the first foundation. Everything starts with our relationship with the Lord, and then everything is placed on top of those foundations. But if the foundation is cracked and broken, nothing has anything to stand on. And so, as we have children and start businesses or start ministries or whatever, we have to be sure that the foundation is solid, or else a fall is coming. A fall is coming.
Yes, yes. Looking out for number one.
Looking out for number one.
Let's kind of switch gears. I know personally, I was the youngest child. Okay, I am the youngest child. And do I dare say I was a mama's boy?
I think that you were, yeah. Definitely.
Anyway, if my mom's watching it, she's going to be.
Yeah, I can just see.
Thailand, don't say nothing.
Is probably making all kind of faces at this point. She's like, this boy.
Yeah. So, I know with my mom, when I got married, so my mom, even when my father was alive, my mom's obviously the matriarch. She is the queen bee. Everything revolved.
Queen bee, literally.
She is.
Queen bee.
Mrs. B.
Picture. Queen bee.
Queen bee.
I like it.
Everything revolved around my mom, whatever she was doing, whatever's going on. So, that's how everything was. It's always about pleasing mom and everything else like that. So when it came down to my relationship with my fiance at the time, I was looking more out for number one, who I thought was number one. I thought she was number one, but really the number one was my mom.
And it wasn't like you did it on purpose.
No, not at all. I need you guys to understand that.
Yeah,
this is
already
nothing
there.
Yeah, it is nothing that my mom did. It was no witchcraft or spells. No. It's nothing of that. It's the fact of, because I'm the youngest, and because I grew up, I was by my mom, I was a lap child. I was all this. Has nothing to do with mom, but it happens to do with.
And you were a child of their older years.
Yeah, too. Yeah. I was their favorite, you know, and I'm still the favorite.
Where's Bill?
Yeah. So Thailand knows. So anyway, I was always wanting to please my mother, but what I didn't realize in the marriage was, or even after the marriage, even though I would look at her and go, man, it's just me and you. I remember looking at her going, man, it's just me and you. But it was not just me and her.
No.
It was me, her, and my mom, like standing right behind us. But she wasn't. And it had nothing to do with mom and my mom doing it.
Mindset.
It's just my mindset.
Yeah, that's just.
And some of the things that I started beginning to see was I had to learn to cut apron strings. Mm-hmm. You guys know what apron strings are? Apron strings, if you ever look in a mental picture, is usually a little kid would hold on to his mother's apron while she's doing work and would always follow behind her. Just follow her behind her. And what I didn't realize is, as a grown man, I was still holding on to those apron strings. And because I was doing that, I was so busy trying to please my mom that I wasn't pleasing my wife. So when that happened, there's a dichotomy here. You gotta. That was a good word. You literally have to make a decision. It's like Jesus drawing the line in the sand. You're going to either be for mama or you're going to be with little mama. Okay?
Can we just say you're going to be with family or you're going to be with your wife? Because
it could be.
It's not always mama.
Right.
Boys. I mean, it's like sometimes like maybe even the wife with their dads. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like wanting their husband to be their dad.
Gail done slipped in.
Yeah.
Gail,
she said he was spoiled rotten. But even like certain wives, they put this pressure on their husband, like, my dad never did that, or my dad always does this, and wanting their husband to measure up to their dad. And so it's just choosing family, your family that raised you, or your spouse, your new number one.
Yeah. And that's basically what it had to do. There has to become a time that you literally have to put away those things and look out for number one.
Yeah, if you're going to be healthy, if you're going to create and build a strong foundation with one another. Of course, if you want to keep things the way it was, things will always be shaky. Like things won't be as strong when you don't have that trust and that fortitude with one another. To know that you have forsaken all others. That's what the vows say.
Those are the vows.
All others.
All others. That includes all.
Yeah.
Not some, forsaken all others.
All, yeah. And so for some people that's hard. That's not easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
So especially like, when your family's not always like on board with the whole situation. You know what I mean? And then they come in and try to point fingers and what's this is going on, like trying to say what's going on in your house or what they're pleased with or what not. It becomes a big issue,
So you guys, my sister's out here telling on me about everything.
Good.
Stop.
Good. You need that.
You're supposed to cover me. My sister is an intercessor. You're supposed to cover me with prayer, not just tell all my business.
Tell all the business. Is he up in here talking about he was the favorite?
I am the favorite. Still am. Mm-hmm. So anyway, but even starting off with marriages, so even in a seasoned marriage, such as my wife and I'd say we're seasoned.
You're seasoned.
I'm talking about our marriage.
You're seasoned, so I guess that means because you're seasoned. I guess that
if I'm seasoned, she's marinated. There's a difference.
So I guess since you're seasoned, because you're getting up there, buddy. So I guess since you're seasoned, that makes our marriage seasoned. I don't know.
Anyway, no, just in our relationships, just because of the time of our marriage and what's going on is these seasons that happen with us sometimes, and hopefully some of you guys will understand, is that because the wave and the tide is changing in our seasons in our lives, that sometimes our needs change. And when our needs change, we have to be aware of each other's needs.
Yeah, and willing to go with one another.
Yeah, but you have to understand, once again, the waves that and I always tell men this, for their wives, their significant others. Like, listen, man, marriage is about learning how to surf. Surfing is supposed to be fun, but it also can be dangerous. But if you are an expert, when you get an expert at waves, you know that there are some waves that are just no, calm waves, but you just ride them. And there's some that are huge waves. And these are the seasons, the waves that your wife is. I said, but you have to learn how to navigate those waves. And if you're a good surfer, you're up for the challenge. And it's a great wave. It's exhilarating. It's fun.
It should be. And
that's what it should be. But for us as men, we need to make sure that sometimes there's some of those seasons when those waves are coming and they're pretty rough. Listen, you may not want to try to tackle that wave right now. You may not want to try to get on it and try to hang 10. This is when you need the help of the Lord to deal with that wave. Sometimes what it takes you to do is, if you guys know anything about surfing, I don't. I just watch it on TV.
But you do snowboard.
I snowboard.
You used to snowboard.
But
Isn't
when
that cool, you guys? I didn't know that about you.
So when the wave would come over, if the wave is up, what you do is you dive down underneath it and let the wave come over you. But if not, if you try to go over that wave's going to take you under and take you down with it. And then, what does that represent? That represents whatever issue your wife is having or needing during that season. Don't get taken underneath the water and get scraped along the floor. What you need to do is just go up underneath it and allow her that space and that time for that season that she's in during that time. That's looking out for number one. It's not about you. It's not about what I'm feeling. It's not about what's going on, or she hurt my feelings, or she ain't get. No, it's about making sure that during her season or during her time or whatever she needs, that I'm making sure she's getting what she needs for that season, through that time, through that situation or that circumstance. As a man, as a husband, as a friend, that we need to be there for our wives. And I think the same thing for wives with husbands.
Yeah, it's just all about being down for the journey. Like, people always, it's almost like a race. Like, people put so much emphasis on the start. Like, they might get special shirts made and take all these pictures beforehand. Maybe they might paint their face because they're all into the start.
I love that analogy. I love that kind.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Because it's true. Like, they'll put so much emphasis on the start and they're so excited about it. That's like the wedding. Put so much emphasis on the wedding and what it's going to look like, the dress, and
all the people that are there.
Yeah, but people don't allow their minds to really embrace the finish. Like, dude, don't put so much emphasis on the start of a thing that you lose sight of the importance of the finish. Like, some people just want to get to the wedding. Some people just want to get to the start, just want to take the selfie of them at the starting line, but they have no thought as to what it may take to make it to the finish. When we really get wise and we really embrace wisdom, we'll be more finish driven instead of, just about what it looks like at the start.
That is man. That is just so true.
It's true, especially with us ladies, because we like to get tutus made and shirts, and like we want to be cute, but we haven't trained. We ain't getting no research. We just trying to be cute and match and be cute at the start of the race, or be cute in our wedding gown or whatever. But we're not completely unprepared for the finish. Relationship is work, you guys. It is a marathon.
Yeah.
It is a marathon. You turn some corners sometimes, and all of a sudden it feels easy, and before you know it, you got false summits because here comes another hill. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh my God,
it's a marathon, and it's for, we have to have our mind ready and prepared for the finish, not just for the now.
Yeah, I know when I was in the military, we had a team. We joined this. It's called the Bataan Death March, commemorating the Bataan Death March during World War II in the Philippines. And there's a lot of Filipino soldiers. I'm just want to give you guys some history. Some Filipino soldiers that marched over 100 miles. A lot of Filipinos died during this time. And but they do a commemorative march every year at White Sands Missile Range for the Bataan Death March. And they have teams. And a lot of teams from all over the world, from the British Navy, the SAS, Canadian Royal Forces, just everywhere. And we had a little small team, and we were light, packed light. So when we took off, you don't realize that you start off at 4,000 feet. And then as you go, you start running, you end up at probably, I think it was around 8,000 feet. It just goes straight into the mountains.
So the air's getting thinner.
The air gets thin. And the funny part about it is everybody at the beginning of the race
super excited.
They're excited.
Super
everybody
excited.
has their uniforms on and everything.
Heck of proud.
And I'm telling you, there's thousands of people. But the funny part about it was, this is my first time doing this. Now, mind you, it's 26 miles.
Yeah.
Through desert terrain. Not on the road, but we're talking about through mountainous terrain. So when we took off, I remember just going, and we had trained for this. We trained for this. And as we went up, I remember all the people that were at the beginning. Then all of a sudden you see less and less and less and less and less. And then before you know it, you're rarely seeing anybody.
You're wondering, is anybody else still in the race?
And then every once in a while, the people that started out good, that left before you, you end up passing them by.
Yeah.
And they're there because you know what? They're done. They didn't have enough to finish.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough endurance.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kept, and we went through, and there was times, like I said, if you looked at our uniforms, we were sweating. We had to take our uniforms off, and we had to give IVs and do all this other stuff. But just thinking about it in the analogy that Kai said, nobody was worried about what it looked like when we left. We were worried about, are all of us going to finish this race? Are we going to make it? And I remember, just because to me, I mean, I didn't think I was going to make it. But when we got to I think it was mile 19, right at mile 19, I knew that there was the finish was coming ahead, and there was a guy standing there, and he looked at us. He goes, "Look, you need to run through town right now, because now you had to go through the White Sands Missile Range where people live. You had to run through the town before you got to the finish line. So you got to put your uniform back on." Mm-hmm. I was like, "Wait, what?" He says, "Listen, man, you got to put your uniform back on because of how it looks and how people see and how it represents. It's a testimony." And I was like, man. So we put our uniforms back on, and you're sweating and everything, but put your uniforms back on the way that you're supposed to. Put our rucks back on, and we just started jogging. And I was tired. My feet was blistering. I had blisters on my legs, and I'm going. But the thing is, and I'm about to be preachy here, but you know how the Bible says that there was a great cloud of witnesses. Mm-hmm. As I'm started running, I didn't think I was going to make it, but as you got through, people started clapping. They weren't clapping at the beginning. Yeah. They were clapping towards the end. Yeah. And as they were clapping, I got more energy to finish the race. And we ran that last 5 miles we ran in and finished the race. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we were done. We just laid down. But that's what it's really all about. It's not about the start. Mm-hmm. It's not about what people are getting left off and people that have fallen off. Mm-hmm. It's about you finishing the race. But the great thing is there's people watching, yeah, and they're cheering for you. Mm-hmm. And they're cheering for you in the race of life.
I love that so much. You should use that analogy in the message. I love that about how you need the people cheering toward the end more than you do at the beginning. Great cloud of witnesses, dude. That's important. Obviously, the Lord knows all about marathon races because He knows what it's like. When you're tired, when you're feeling like you're without strength, man, there's a great cloud of witnesses that are cheering you on. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that analogy. So, yeah, man, looking out for number one. Looking out for number one.
She's my number one. We actually did this pretty good because we didn't know how we were going to do this today.
Told you guys, it's not one of my favorites because I had not a clue what we were going to talk about, and I was like, it's not. That's not my favorite. And I don't know what it's about. That's not my favorite.
I will say something.
I
can't say one thing. Mm-hmm. If any of you that are on there know anything about skin, Pastor John is having an issue with, what is this, eczema? Mm-hmm. Right here and right here.
Yeah, we need some treatment. I need
some treatment, some ideas or something. It's really starting to happen.
The doctors don't want to see you anymore now unless you're like bleeding out and you got COVID coming out your ears.
Right.
So,
even though I got a good doctor.
We're going to need some home remedies.
We need something.
Anybody got any home remedies?
I need somebody I need to go out the back, get you some
lamb's wool.
Some lamb's wool.
Rub that on there.
Then put some dirt on there, and some cobwebs, mm-hmm, and some soot with a teaspoonful of sugar, mm-hmm, and put that up with some milk, some buttermilk, and then put that on your face. I need somebody to give me some tips, yeah, to get rid of this stuff. But anyway, yeah, you guys look.
Thanks for rocking with us, you guys.
Yeah, we love y'all, man. Thanks for being here with us.
Any ladies on here? We have Ladies 80 Skate. Is this
Ladies,
Saturday?
say it fast.
Ladies 80 Skate is this Saturday, 6 o'clock. It's going to be so much fun at the church.
Then please make sure your insurance is paid for. Covered California.
Yeah. In case you mess up that hip.
If you fall, I'm sorry. There will be a healing service Sunday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love you guys.
Love y'all. We'll talk to you later.